All right, it's been a hot minute since I talked about Xdefiant, the Ubisoft team shooter. I last looked at it actually back in August. They had an open beta. There are a lot of closed betas that go on that I don't really participate in because I can't really show a lot of that stuff anyway. The game has been progressing nicely, I think. But now that it's in an open beta session again, it's available to everyone June 21st through June 23rd. I'm recording this video on June 21st. You can check it out, and we can talk about it, and we can have a recording of it, and all that wonderful stuff. But a lot has changed. If you're not familiar with what this game is, I guess I'll just take a step back. It is basically a cross of all of the Ubisoft worlds blended together in a first-person shooter that is primarily objective-based. So think things like Overwatch. Think of capturing the control point and getting the most points at the end to win, or pushing the objective from one end of the map to the other, and then flip-flopping, taking turns being offense or defense and trying to get the lowest time to win. It's cool because it's based in the Tom Clancy universe, and I'm a huge fan of all things Tom Clancy. So the fact that this exists is really cool. You're looking at gameplay footage that I grabbed from Twitch. I did stream it on my Xbox Series X, so it may not look as good to you as it does to me, primarily because Twitch doesn't allow for that super high 120 frame per second mode, which I was playing in, and oh my god, is it so silky smooth. You're gonna have to rely on other experts like the dudes from Digital Foundry or other screen captures to tell you if it really is running at 120 frames a second consistently. It was insanely smooth, and playing a shooter at 120 FPS, there's nothing like it. So there you have it. That's what I'm playing on. All right. So what is different about this game since the last time we talked? Well, quite a bit, actually. One of the big things that they're doing on this particular session is they are allowing you to unlock DedSec, one of the factions in the game, by earning a total of 125,000 experience over all 3 days. It seems realistic, although slightly high, depending on how good or bad you are. Obviously, it will take you longer or not as much time. I'm not entirely sure if I want to grind it. I definitely want to play the game when it comes out. I know I'm going to be grinding a lot anyway. I don't know if in this state I want to, because there are still some issues with this which make this non-optimal experience. But I guess if you're the most hardcore of the most hardcore, get out there, get 125,000 experience, and you will unlock the DedSec forever and ever. They've also focused on a couple things that they have worked on since the last gameplay session. They have new NETCODE, which focuses on server stability, which is kind of comical because there's a bug right now that is not really very stable. And they have enhanced the console controller experience. That definitely they have done. So first and foremost, they talk about, this new NETCODE, and basically they've redone everything. They've started from scratch. They've gone back. They've polished. They've refined. I still feel there are phantom bullets. In other words, there are shots that don't register. There are definitely times when you activate your grenade or your ability and it doesn't seem to do any damage at all. Like, it just doesn't exist. You see it on the screen, it detonates, it does the thing it's supposed to do. Sometimes you get hit markers, sometimes you don't. That obviously is frustrating. So despite the kind of excitement and the look and feel behind the new NETCODE, there's definitely something that, it remains to be seen there. The server stability is better. I never actually disconnected from a game. However, in between game sessions, when the game is creating the lobby for you, they're calling it the 9% bug. Essentially, the game just stops at 9%, and you just gotta wait. You kind of think maybe something's gonna happen. You still hear background music. It doesn't. You're gonna have to kill the game and relaunch it. The relaunching of the game takes a decent amount of time, and it kind of breaks up the flow of the game. Obviously, it's a bug they'll fix. it's just funny that they're like, hey, we improved server stability, and then there's a bug that almost every single match you're going to have to quit to your console's home screen to basically relaunch the game and start over. The controller experience, I can say, was a lot better. I was playing on my Xbox Elite controller, and it felt great. Now, I do like to play not as twitchy as others, so I did lower the sensitivity overall, but it felt very natural and responsive for me. They definitely have learned from some of the other shooters. It's very nice, rounded aiming. A lot of times you have the horizontal aim being more sensitive than the vertical aim. You got to kind of play with the sensitivity to get kind of like a more generic or more universal. Generic's probably not the right word, but a more generic, I just said it again, a more default aiming pattern where the analog stick up, down, left, and right all move the same, and you can draw essentially a circle. Halo Infinite is a great example of not doing that. If you want to have kind of more traditional aim in Halo Infinite, you have to change the vertical sensitivity to be half of, or double rather, of the horizontal sensitivity. Here you don't have that problem. There are some smoothing and some aiming assists that are in the game. They all felt great. The firefights that I won or lost seemed fair, except for those phantom bullets, which unfortunately do rear their ugly head from time to time. But it felt fair in the combat, and it felt fair in kind of like how I was proceeding in moving around and exploring and shooting and stuff like that. So I think they've done a really good job on that. They've also added, as I mentioned earlier, 120 frame per second mode on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And it was so smooth and fluid. I was just amazed. One of the things that I love about Tom Clancy games is just the insane attention to detail and realism. This particular map is from The Division, and the advertisements here in this New York subway and all the attention to detail on the poles and the tiles and the grout and the pipes and everything felt so incredibly smooth and realistic. It was an absolute joy to play through this map. So I think they did a really good job when it comes to the aesthetic of this game, the movement of this game. They just still need to work on some of those issues, which I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will get them better. And I think if they can tighten up that bullet sensitivity, that bullet registration experience, where you're not getting those phantom bullets, and I think if they can tighten up some of the annoying bugs that still exist, like the 9% bug, I think this game has some pretty solid bones from which to build on future levels and future classes. So really excited just in that sense of kind of the look and the feel of the game, and I think it's in a much better place. If I had any technical criticisms of the game, absolutely, it has to be, without a doubt, the audio. The audio definitely needs some work. You kind of have that default footstep noise that's just everywhere consistently. You don't really hear distinct noise when you're running in, you know, hallways where they would echo, or puddles, or different types of surfaces. And I think that's something that they can improve over time. The spatial awareness, are they coming from my left, or are they my right, above me, below me? I think that was great. They just need to work on the actual sound effects. Some of the guns don't really sound as throaty as they probably should. Some of the explosions definitely felt dialed in and very kind of like not impactful. Especially when you're using your ultimate, it didn't feel like you were really commanding the battlefield. I was using a flamethrower, which was great because it basically smokes enemies instantly, but it never felt that impactful. I know it was. It didn't sound it for sure. So those are definitely, I think, some improvements that we should hope to see going on in the future. Obviously, they are soliciting tons of feedback at this point. They want to hear from you and everyone else, and they want to know what is the best way to obviously make this game the best it can. They're really trying to compete against Call of Duty. They're really trying to enter that competitive tournament space. I think Overwatch, definitely lost a lot of traction, particularly with the addition and then immediate inclusion of the single-player experience. And this game, as far as I know, doesn't have that, but I think it has a lot of goodwill going into it because we haven't had a proper first-person polished experience from Ubisoft in a while that had this kind of promise. I know they had some of those other kind of throwaway arena battle games, but this one has legacy to it because it pulls in all of those worlds that we have played so much of. So at the start, this is ability-centered classes, and you're going to get to pick a faction, and you kind of select a character from that faction, and your abilities are based on what that faction would do. So if you're familiar with Tom Clancy's The Division, one of my favoriteest games ever, Division 1 or 2, the Cleaners, that's who I'm actually playing as now. This guy has the ability of a incinerator drone and a firebomb. The incinerator drone, hit and miss. Basically, it shoots this kind of drone out in front of you and lays down fire and then explodes at the end. The ultimate being the flamethrower, which is really, really nice. As an added passive to this particular character, they have incendiary rounds automatically on any gun. So the bullets deal a couple ticks of damage after the initial hit. The trade-off there, obviously, is they're a little less in range because there has to be some sort of like trade-off, right? But it's really cool that, you know, they're kind of really embracing the theme of the cleaner and fire and that sort of thing. The other classes available are Echelon, which is basically the Splinter Cell agents. They have a digital ghillie suit and an intel suit. And then their ultimate is these sonar goggles. So both of those suits do scans nearby, showing the location of enemies, camouflaging entirely, so you're basically transparent, or basically, you know, using a sonar ping that like finds enemies on the map, and then equipping a gun that's kind of, you know, like a real-time, you know, burn down, like it's Sam Fisher's gun. I'm sure you've played Splinter Cell, but he had this kind of notorious pistol, the 5.7. And that was kind of like his go-to weapon. So you'll equip that, you'll be able to see through walls, and you'll be able to kill people. It's pretty cool. The next class is the Libertad. Those were the kind of heroes of Far Cry 5. They have a ability where they basically boost health around them through the spirit of liberation. They have faster regeneration, and they also have basically healing kits. And their ultimate is to give everybody a massive health boost in the area, kind of like what Lucio does in Heroes of the Storm or in Overwatch, same character, where he kind of gives you like an overcharge of health for a little bit of amount of time with additional health regeneration. So that's a fun character to play because you have a support class now in a shooter. Yes, Overwatch has this, but Call of Duty does not. So you're dabbling a little bit into that genre of like, well, you know, not necessarily you're going to be able to heal people through waves and waves of bullets, but it might be enough. That passive around you might be enough to keep your teammates in the fight just a little bit longer. The next group are the Phantoms. Those are the group. That's the guys that took over the island in Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon. These guys are really, really cool. Phantoms have this harden ability, which basically gives them additional health through gene therapy. They have a barrier that's kind of like a mag barrier that allows them to basically set up shop and defend strongholds, and they have a bulletproof shield. Their ultimate is a massive bubble that's like a 360 bubble that allows them to be safe. Phenomenal for taking control points, running into battle and popping that, and then having control of the battlefield for a few seconds. These guys are really, really fun to play. And the last I mentioned before, with the unlock, you have to get the 125,000 experience to permanently unlock them, is DedSec, and this is the group from Watch Dogs. They have some fun abilities. Their main fabricator ability is their passive. This allows them to basically use their abilities faster because they're using like these 3D printing modules. They can hack enemy players, and they have an ultimate of They have the spider bot ability, which jumps on character screens, which prevents you from like doing anything. It's kind of trippy looking. And then they have a lockout where they can basically hack you so you can't use any of your abilities for a while. Every one of these classes, absolutely viable. Everybody has a strength and a weakness. And it's fun to see that all of these universes are being mixed together, not just in the playstyle and the characters and in the aesthetics, but also in the level design as well. This particular level, as I mentioned, is an area from New York, which would be from the Division 1. But there are levels from Far Cry. There are levels from Watch Dogs. There are levels from Ghost Recon. And there are levels from Splinter Cell, which is awesome. They're all different aesthetics. It feels like you're in that place. And the game modes don't necessarily support that yet. Maybe they will. But I think that the team has really embraced the concept of very solid level design and world design, and I think they've done something here where it does transcend just like any one of the individual franchises. You know, I think you could argue that Call of Duty probably has one of the largest, you know, prestiges when you look across the generation of all the Call of Duties that have come out over the years. They never really do a great job of drawing in old characters from previous games. They're definitely not a hero-based shooter, so they don't have those like traditional classes or whatever that you would expect here. So they kind of fail at that, and I can honestly see why this could potentially be like the Call of Duty killer. All of these games are definitely respected and revered and sought after and played. The fact that they're all in the same universe is cool. Now, are people really going to get amped up if a random faction in the Division, you know, finds their way into this game? Maybe not. I think they've started with ones that are definitely more iconic than others. Maybe one day we'll get an Assassin's group that uses a hidden blade or throwing stars, which everybody be running around like Altair. That could be awesome too. But, you know, being a live service game, I'm sure they're going to have a battle pass. I'm sure they're going to have lots of stuff in this game that, you know, expands over time. And I can't wait to play it. I am super, super excited. I fell in love with this the first time I played it, and it's a day one for me, no doubt. So that wraps up this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.